What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to talk about exactly how we just did $100,000 in cash from one live webinar with zero sales team and zero ad spend. And more specifically, what I'm going to cover in this video is the numbers, the offer itself, the traffic sources, the webinar, what worked, and what we plan to fix on the next one. So for context, if you don't know who I am, welcome to the channel. My name is Sebastian Robeck. I've been in the digital marketing, online advertising, coach, consulting, info space for almost 8 years now. I used to run my own high-ticket coaching business for about 3 years, and I sold that in 2021. I then went on to work as a CMO for a bunch of really sizable info brands, doing 7 and 8 plus figures, including Closers.io, which is run by Cole Gordon. A lot of you guys probably know them. And at this point, I probably managed well over $70 million in paid media spend across multiple channels. And at the moment, I'm the CMO for a holistic health coaching brand doing between 5 to 6 million a year. And we're on the path to scaling to 8 figures a year. And this channel is essentially my personal creative outlet and hub for just sharing what's working, what we're testing, what we're trying, and what we're fucking up on. So hopefully you get some value out of it. And without further ado, let's dive in. So for context, we have been doing live webinars for about 8 months or so now, and we did our first one last year in September 2025. And essentially from the jump, they absolutely crushed it for us. We would consistently get between 700 to 1,000 people live initially at the webinar, and usually about an average of 400 to 450 people sticking around to the 1 hour mark. And then we would have roughly 40 to 50% of those people booking calls with our sales team. So typically most of our webinars have booked between, on the low end, 160, 170 calls to upwards of 250 calls between, the post-webinar replay sequences, which I've talked a lot about in my other videos, and us occasionally doing pop-up webinars to further drive more booked call volume. So historically, they've done very well from a standpoint of generating buzz, getting people excited and booking calls for the sales team. Now, what we have found with extensive data is that the net amount of cash that we have collected from all of our live webinars has just not been nearly up to the standards that we would like it to be. And a lot of that has been due to sales team issues, which it's just been an ongoing challenge for us, and we are 100% in the process of fixing it, but it's just part of the game. Secondly, we've also found that there's a large portion of our market who responds differently to different types of offers. And so for this webinar, what we wanted to do was try something totally different. So instead of selling a $7,800 program on the back of a sales call to a market that we had just started to find that they weren't responding as well to that particular offer, instead, we said, why don't we test selling a mid-ticket course to create a lot more initial cash flow on the webinar, capture more people, and then build an ascension process on the back end where we send people from the $1,000 course upwards to a higher ticket coaching package. So that was essentially the theory. It's like, okay, maybe we can actually tap more into the market that we have here, and more people in our market and on these webinars will actually respond to a mid-ticket DIY type of course. And so again, the pivot was, instead of getting to the end of the webinar and then saying, hey, book a call with our team, aka a sales call, we said, let's just go direct to cart and sell a $997 course where it's essentially a DIY. They can do the protocols themselves. They can completely implement all the information by themselves. And we sold it directly on the webinar. The CEO of the company pitched it. We dropped a link, and people just can go right there and pay as if they're buying a low ticket product. So let's talk about how we actually filled the room. So how we got people onto the webinar. So again, we spent nothing on ads for this one. Typically, we do spend some budget on ads, depending on what we're trying to do. We'll spend anywhere between 5 to maybe 15K. Most of the traffic typically being warm, but this, sometimes we tested some cold, but this time we did no ads. We said, let's just see what happens if we just go balls to the walls with marketing. And essentially, it was kind of a test to see how much we could generate just straight from marketing alone without any sales team involvement, just to bring some diversity into the company's revenue, right? And so all the traffic that we pushed into this webinar was all warm traffic, so no ad spend, not even to warm traffic. And what we did was essentially a mix of email promo to our list, and more specifically, we sent a well built out promo sequence over the course of 6 days, and we sent about 8 emails in total. I've got to double check. It might be a few more than that, maybe 9 or 10. But we sent just about 1 to 2 emails a day. And those were like our main promo emails to the list. In addition to that, what we did is we got really granular with following up with non-openers and engagers of those emails. So anyone who didn't open the email the previous day, we would send it again to them the next day with a different subject line to 2 to 3x the reach and the exposure of those emails. What we also did was, for every other promo email that we sent, so if we sent, it's either between 8 and 10 total promo emails, for every other email, so about 4 to 5 in total, what we would do is we would send a follow-up email to anyone who clicked the link in that email to go and sign up and register for a seat in the workshop, but who didn't register. So we would do it like an automation where it was essentially, hey, we sent the email, boom, they clicked the link. And then if within 30 minutes they didn't actually sign up, and we just checked if they had the tag, registered for the webinar, we'd send a follow-up email that was very customized and personalized based off whatever email they had just clicked from. So for example, if we sent an email about a specific client case study, we would send a follow-up to people who clicked but didn't register and say, hey, saw you just checked out my email about Joe Smith, but you didn't actually register for the workshop. In case you want that link again, here it is, right? So simple follow-up stuff, but it actually made a massive difference. And in total, I'll get into the rest of how we drove the traffic here in just a minute, but just so you guys have context, in total, we drove about 3,200 registrants to this webinar. Again, no ads. It was a free webinar, so it wasn't like a low ticket, like paid workshop. And we had about, at the peak, we had about 600 or so people live and about 500 or so by the time we dropped the offer, which was actually much better than any of our previous webinars. So big win on that front. So anyways, we sent all these emails. We did a bunch of SMS blasts. We also have everyone joining WhatsApp groups after they sign up. And so we've also accumulated quite a few WhatsApp groups from our previous webinars now, which perform really, really well. And so we just sent blasts to those WhatsApp groups. Essentially, we just went balls to the walls on every possible crevice of promo for this webinar. Again, we did organic across every single account that we have. So we have a Facebook page. I forget exactly how many followers off the top of my head. I mean, we have like probably over 1 to 2 million followers across all our socials between Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So we have a big organic presence, which is huge and helps a ton. And we put a lot of energy into organic on a daily, weekly basis. So we did a lot of organic on Facebook. Instagram was huge. We did a bunch of carousels, reels, stories, whole load of stuff on the Instagram side. We also did little things, but that make a big difference at scale, like changing the link in the description for all of our YouTube videos to the actual registration link for the webinar, putting a pinned comment on every single YouTube video with a sign up link. For example, something else that we did that helped tremendously was we changed all the buttons on our home website to lead to the sign up page. We also put a sticky banner at the top of the home website, because we actually get, I think we get about 200 to 300 visits to our home website every single day, just completely organically. We don't run any paid direct to our home website, but because of how much we do spend on paid ads on the front end, we get a lot of people just trickling in and wanting to check out the rest of our ecosystem. So a lot of people hit our home website, so we wanted to make sure that we captured as many of those people as possible. So we also had the sales team reaching out to some leads in their pipeline. So I guess technically, it's not like we had no sales team. We did have some sales team involvement, but all of the cash collected was from the webinar itself and the follow-up emails. So anyways, something else that we did was we fed all of our daily low ticket buyers straight into this webinar promo sequence, and also on the post-purchase page. So what I mean is right now we're spending a lot less than what we usually do. We're only spending about $3,500 a day on paid traffic at the moment, almost entirely to our low ticket funnels to feed buyers into our ecosystem every single day. And on the post-purchase page, we actually just changed it to have a button that took them to the registration page for the live workshop. So essentially every possible arena of our marketing, our funnels, etc., started just directing everyone to the sign up page for the webinar. So every time we do these webinars, we essentially just orient the entire marketing ecosystem to that page. So it becomes the registration page becomes the link in our bio for all our socials, all our profiles. It's essentially just everywhere. You just can't miss it. And again, the important caveat for you guys to know is that this was all warm traffic, right? So we have no idea how well this webinar is going to perform once we do cold traffic, which is going to be one of our next big tests here. But I do think it's still going to do well because the offer and the pitch actually absolutely crushed it. But it is just an important caveat. So if you don't have any organic presence, any warm traffic, just take that into account. But if you do, and you're not doing a webinar like this, you're probably missing out on quite a bit of additional cash flow and revenue. So this is something really important when it comes specifically to the webinar itself. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we have been doing live webinars for, again, about 7-8 months now. So we've already found a winning webinar structure and a flow. So what we really wanted to make sure that we did was not reinvent the wheel and change the entire thing, because there's already a massive variable in this webinar, which was selling a mid-ticket course instead of selling the book a call to a sales team, which we had already spent the last 7-8 months optimizing and proving out. So instead of like reworking the entire thing, we made some minor tweaks, cleaned things up just a little bit, but for the most part, a lot of the work on what we changed was the actual offer itself. So we kept the story section the same, the teaching, the mechanism, all that stuff that we know works, we just didn't touch it. And we focused on actually adjusting the last roughly 15 to 20 minutes of the presentation, which was the close, the setup for the offer, etc. So that's something very, very important to know, right? So if anyone here is running any webinars, or really only applies if you ran webinars in the past, don't think you have to change the entire thing to sell a mid-ticket course if that's something that you want to test and try. So the offer itself, again, as I mentioned earlier, for this one, instead of selling, hey, book a call with our sales team, we did get our DIY course for $997 or $1,000, whatever. And so part of the reason we did that as well is because we've also have gotten a lot of sales feedback from our sales team on the types of leads showing up on calls. And there's a fair bit of people showing up who just naturally fit more into this pocket of people who are much more likely to say yes to a mid-ticket offer much more easily, more like an impulse buy, rather than immediately saying yes to a 5, 7, 10K plus coaching package. So again, this was also where we wanted to, the thinking behind why we wanted to scoop up a lot more people that we otherwise may have just been missing by trying to sort of square peg round hole them into a high ticket coaching offer. So some of the more nuances that we did here with the actual offer was we obviously had the main course, but we also have additional info products and courses that we stacked as bonuses, which, we just have a lot of material. It's very easy to turn a lot of you guys probably have plenty of course material you can easily turn into, bonuses and stack that very easily. We did things like, price anchoring against our high ticket, coaching program. We did have a, money back guarantee, right? So that it was like, hey, you have to do the work essentially, but there's a 30-day money back guarantee. So that helped. The other thing that we did was we added 2 specific bonuses. So we had a live only bonus, meaning if they bought, in order to get this bonus, they had to buy live on the webinar itself, which was offering 60 days worth of coaching inside of a school group from our coaching team, along with once per month live group coaching sessions as well, essentially group calls, right? And so that worked really, really well. I think we drove about 50K in sales live on the webinar. That's another interesting fact here in case you guys are curious, is that we drove roughly 50K in sales live on the webinar, and then the other 51, 52K came actually almost entirely in the last 24 hours. It's also good for you guys to know as far as maximizing on urgency and time, right? So we opened the cart, if you will, for 48 hours. From like we dropped the offer on the webinar. Here's the offer. Here's the stack. Here's the price. Here's how to get it. Here's the guarantee, et cetera. Here's the bonuses. And then we open the cart for 48 hours, right? Natural urgency. And we genuinely did close the cart at 48 hours. So don't lie and then keep the cart open for another 12 hours. It kind of just, it's going to fuck up your brand and tarnish your reputation. So we genuinely did close the cart. But what's interesting is that we did the 50K live on the webinar. And then the next 24 hours was like crickets. We had 2 sales come through. It was like, I was like freaking out. I was like, what the fuck? Like, there's no way we're only doing 50K from this webinar. And then similar to our Black Friday promotion last year, where we did roughly 400K in cash collected off of a $497 mid-ticket offer, we had a huge portion of sales come in the very last like 12 to 24 hours. Same thing here. So we sent, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got to double check, but I think we sent 5 to 6 emails on the very last day. So within 24 hours, we sent 6 urgency emails. And some of you might be watching this and be thinking, oh my God, that's insane. You can't send six emails to your list. First of all, not true. Second of all, you'd be surprised how well it works. And lastly, people just fucking respond to urgency and discounts and deals. And when they know it's about to go away, people will literally wait till the last minute. And that's exactly what we saw. So in the last like 16 to 18 hours, we just see this flood of like 50 new sales come through. And that was the additional roughly 50K in cash. I say roughly because it was like 51 or 52 or something. And I was just sitting there like, this is fucking crazy. Like I knew it was going to happen, but also even if you've seen it happen a bunch of times, it's still like crazy when you watch it. So anyways, that's really important for you guys to know, is that a lot of this, pretty much half the sales and the cash from this webinar came in the last 24 hours, right? And so just to go a little bit more granular here with the actual close and how we structured it. So we recapped the transformation, the education, and the mechanism that we just did, for the basically first 45 minutes or so of the webinar. And then we transitioned to like, obviously a lot of you guys can go do this yourself. You can take what we just showed you here and go out and try and implement it. Or obviously you can have our help. And the way we want to help you guys is we built this thing, blah, blah, blah. It's the course, stack the value, et cetera. Obviously there's more to it. I'm just trying to keep it concise for you guys here. Like I said, urgency, it's really important. The guarantee. So something I want to hammer on here is, you might be noticing this, is like, and I've noticed this with any kind of promo we've ever done, which is that it is always, how they say, death by 1,000 cuts. It's the same thing. It's like success by 1,000, micro wins or whatever. And so the reason I'm saying that is because this webinar succeeded because we did a bunch of little things right. We didn't just nail one big thing, right? We pretty much tried to nail everything, and it was a bunch of small little things that added up. So for example, things like having a good offer stack, having the bonuses be really enticing, having specific, as I said, 2 bonuses. There was a live only bonus for those who buy on the call. And then there was another bonus, which was, we call it pay in full bonus. If you pay in full, we did what's called a second seat bonus. Shout out to my sister, by the way. She's actually the lead strategist over at Bad Marketing, and she gave me this idea, so she's a stud. And so basically what we did was we offered people a second seat, meaning they can grant access to the course and all the additional like bonuses and information protocols that we gave people to someone else that they love. So it's like, hey, if you have a family member, someone else you think would really benefit from this, which landed really well for our market because a lot of the people in our audience are struggling with some kind of chronic health issue. And so they really are trying to heal, and they also have someone else that they might, care about who's struggling with something similarly. So that did really well. So as you can see, it's all these little things. And then the Q&A, right? So we go through the offer stack, the guarantee, we walk them through the cart, we drop the link, we pull it up on screen, and then we do the Q&A, and we stayed on the Q&A for at least 30, 45 minutes. So this is a really important factor here with these live webinars. If you're doing anything like this where you're selling a DIY course, try and stay on the Q&A for as long as humanly possible. I promise you, you will see a direct correlation between how long you stay on in the Q&A and how much you do in sales. And the longer you stay on, the more you do. It's just what I've seen to work and seen to be the case time and time again. So the numbers, I've already gone through these, just kind of flowing here. But again, we had roughly 550 people live when we dropped the offer, about 48 bought. So roughly a 9% conversion rate. For me personally, just because I'm a fucking maniac perfectionist, I'm like, man, we should have been at 12% or 15%. But I talked to a few friends and they were like, dude, like 9% is actually pretty good. It's industry standard, cool, whatever. But I don't like industry standard, but for the first time doing it with zero like refinement of the pitch or anything, I would say it's still pretty good. So again, roughly 9% conversion, 50K in cash on the day, no ad spend, warm list, didn't sell anything via a sales call, all just direct to cart. And like I said, the cart stayed open with a really aggressive replay sequence, which really allowed us to get up to about 102,000 in cash collected from the webinar. So as far as what worked, it was really, like I said, keeping the webinar mostly the same. Again, with some just a few small adjustments and tightening things up. But on the whole, it was just, it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we really just focus on changing the close and the offer. We priced it for impulse, right? So there's a difference between doing 997 and say 2500, right? There's just a different price barrier there. So 997 is really an easy entry point for a lot of the people on the webinar and in our market, especially when we anchored it against, our high ticket coaching and even our one-on-one coaching products that we sell for upwards of 20 to 30K. And so really what that was doing at the core, I would say, is meeting the market where it actually was and where they are willing to pay on sort of a first entry point. And that really allowed us to generate kind of the frenzy of buyers, if you will. So as far as what we got wrong, I think there's definitely still things we could have done better. Obviously we ran no ads, so that's an easy lever to pull for the next one. I genuinely think if we spent even 5K on warm traffic ads, we probably would have produced another 20, 30K in cash, if not more potentially. The other variable that I would say, and I wouldn't say this is something we got wrong, we just don't know yet how this is going to do, is the ascension process. So we've never really tested, doing a mid-ticket and then ascending people from there to high-ticket coaching. And obviously, it's nice to make 100K in cash with no sales commissions, and that's cool. And we'll still be doing these once or twice a month, and that's great. But really, where the big money is going to be on the back-end ascension process, and we're very aware of that. And so, again, I wouldn't say it's something we got wrong. It's just something that's still a question mark for us, and we're still dialing in as we speak. And it's kind of a TBD as far as how well it's going to perform. So obviously, you guys will know as I find out. So hopefully, we'll have some data on that pretty soon. Let me just take a look at my notes here. So I would say we really didn't get much wrong, to be honest. I mean, we pulled out all the stops from a promo standpoint. Our emails and everything we did was just getting crazy engagement. We probably could have done better on our organic Instagram story specifically, but we still absolutely crushed the sign up flow considering we spent nothing on ads. I mean, for context, we basically got more webinar registrations than like 80 to 90% of the webinars we've done in the past, but with spending zero on ads. So overall, pretty good. The general takeaways, again, is just that, if you're watching this and maybe if you haven't done any live webinars yet, first of all, you got to do a live webinar. Just even if you're going to just do a standard book a call model and have your sales team do their thing, just fucking do a live webinar. If you want some more insights on how best to run those, you can watch some of the other videos here on the channel. But if you have already done some live webinars and maybe they just didn't perform as well as you would have liked them to, first of all, there's still some things you could probably fix and clean up. But if you do want to test something different, and if you have more of a B2C market, this probably is not going to work nearly as well for B2B. I mean, it can, you never know. But if you have a B2C based offering that's coaching, I would definitely test doing a webinar like this where you sell a mid-ticket course. You can create a really substantial wave of cash flow for the business that obviously you can reinvest into team, ads, et cetera, and growth. But also it does, for us, where we're moving as a company is we are kind of building two parallel lanes where, for a while, we were very, very heavily reliant on the sales team, which isn't a bad thing at all. And sales teams are great and they're 100%, one of the best ways to scale an info-based business like this. But we also are aware that there's been massive potential for us on the marketing side to actually create more net new cash flow and profit from marketing as a profit center rather than purely being a feeder to the sales team. And so really what we're focusing on right now is how do we build these two lanes in parallel where we have funnels and leads coming through for the sales team specifically and keeping them fed and continuing to optimize that beast of a machine while also turning marketing into more of a profit center. And in my opinion, these live webinars, selling a mid-ticket course is one of the best ways to do that. So again, if you're trying to do something different, test something new, I would highly recommend you guys do it. And that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed the video. Drop some questions down below and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.